Up next on today's Wild West, Death Valley National Park. We'll ride an authentic 20 Mule Team freight wagon. Camp with the Death Valley Wagon Train. Check into a historic hotel, take a trail ride, and much more. Plus, you'll meet some of today's best Western artists.
You're showing with the best in the country.
And see their amazing work. Archery masters of the American West. Today's Wild West is next. The Wild West. It's still out there. And we'll show you how to find it. This is today's Wild West. The 20 Mule Team Borax freight wagons roll again in Death Valley. The harsh desert they made famous in the Old West. Quite a thrill on a November weekend for both the crowd and the Teamsters, as a set of freight wagons identical to those used in the 1800s and pulled by a 20 Mule Team paraded through the community of Furnace Creek in Death Valley National Park. The authentic recreation of the historic wagons, which hauled tons of borax across the Mojave Desert, is all thanks to the nonprofit Death Valley Conservancy.
We thought it was important to preserve this history, so we began a fundraising project to recreate these wagons. They are exact duplicates of the ones down at Harmony, exactly to scale, down to the same wood species.
Conservancy co-founder Preston CHIARO has had a lifelong passion for Death Valley and is a former president of U.S. Borax, the company well known for its historic roots in Death Valley and its 20 Mule Team trademark. He was even invited to speak at dedication ceremonies after Death Valley became a national park in 1994.
So here I was, the president of a mining and chemical company, speaking at the dedication of a national park. But that's just a reflection of the close connection historically between the Borax Company and the Park Service.
The last intact set of freight wagons from the 1880s, no longer operable, are on display in the park at the ruins of the Harmony Borax Works, the 19th century plant that refined borax ore, producing 3 tons a day. Pulled by a 20 Mule Team and driven by a pair of Teamsters, a loaded set of 2 ore wagons and a 1,200-gallon water wagon weighed more than 36 tons as it traveled 165 miles one way to the town of Mojave, a 10-day journey through the scorching desert.
To see that come to life, to see the faces of those in the parades and the awe and the rekindling of the awareness of the Death Valley history is amazing to be a part of.
After a nationwide search, Dave ENGEL was chosen to resurrect the wagons. Few people have the know-how to accurately recreate these giant horse-drawn wagons that weigh 4 tons apiece with wheels 7 feet tall. But at his shop near Yellowstone National Park, the Montana wheelwright, blacksmith, and craftsman has been building and restoring horse-drawn vehicles for 40 years.
It is a combination of 2 things that I've always loved. I was raised on horses, and I was raised on woodworking.
Still, bringing these massive freight wagons back to life was a daunting challenge.
It was a complicated endeavor. Everything is 3 and 4 times the size of what a normal wagon is. So the basic principle of wagon building is still there at its core, but dealing with the size and mass of it all was the challenge.
Step 1 was creating a blueprint, which Dave did by measuring and photographing every detail of the historic wagons displayed at the park.
Down to every little piece of iron.
How long did that take?
All winter.
Long before Dave was hired for the job, the Conservancy was raising money to pay for it. It took 7 years to raise the $400,000 needed for the project, $150,000 for each ore wagon, and another $100,000 for the water wagon.
The Borax Company was our biggest donor. They gave $150,000, so they themselves paid effectively for one of these freight wagons.
Building the wagons was one challenge. Finding someone who knew how to hitch up and drive a 20 Mule Team was another.
The mules that we use here today are owned and trained and driven by Bobby Tanner. He recreated the same techniques that were pioneered right here 140 years ago.
The first time we hooked up a 20 Mule Team hitch was back in 1981, and we had a person show us how to hitch it up. He had worked in previous hitches and showed us how to hitch it up. So once you get all this stuff unloaded here. Why don't you take...
The son of a Sierra Nevada outfitter, Bobby Tanner grew up with horses and mules at Red's Meadow. His family's resort and pack station near Mammoth Lakes, California. He's pulled other historic wagons over the years with his 20 mule team, like the historic mining wagons of Sun Valley, Idaho's Wagon Days Parade.
We just started doing it, made probably every mistake that you could think of, and learned from our mistakes. So it's been a long process, but we've figured out the tricks to it.
Bobby says back in the day, the 10-day wagon treks across the Mojave were pretty routine for the two-man crew. With big 8-inch wide tires, the massive wagons could float on the sand as they were pulled across the desert. At day's end, the teamsters would lay out the harness in an organized fashion and set the mules out to graze, always with a horse, the bell mare.
Mules like horses, and so if you're out in the middle of the Mojave Desert and you don't have a horse around to keep the mules company, you may get up in the morning and your mules may be gone. So if they have a bell mare to keep the mules happy, that was the purpose of why they had horses in the hitch.
The 20 mule teams almost always included 2 horses, hitched up in the wheeler spot closest to the wagon.
The wheeler spot is where you can hide the weaker animals, and the horses, big draft horses don't do well in hot, dry desert climates. So the wheeler spot is a place where the animals can be not quite as strong and still be part of the hitch.
One of the 2 teamsters usually rode one of the horses while the other walked or rode in the wagon. The old-timers, of course, had their hardships operating in the hottest place on Earth, but the modern world presents its own set of challenges.
When we're practicing out in the desert, it's very easy. It's just me and one other person, and it's very easy out in the sagebrush on a dirt road. This is a very easy hitch to operate, but on asphalt, in crowds, strollers and bicycles and all that kind of stuff, it's a bit of a challenge.
And while the wagons are, of course, equipped with their original brakes, Bobby takes no chances. On a downhill slope on asphalt, Tanner hooks up a pickup truck to the rear tanker wagon for extra stopping power, just in case. Taking the borax wagons out for a spin with the 20 mule team is a major project. First, you have to haul the wagons, mules, and the crew about 200 miles to Death Valley. The mules spend the night at the Furnace Creek stables, and on parade day, they're hauled to the staging area, unloaded, brushed, and harnessed, then hitched up to the 20 mule team chain.
Hooked up pretty easy, huh?
Yeah, there's just a lot of them.
The wranglers who do all this work are part of the team that makes sure all goes well when the wagons go down the road.
Issues that we deal with are asphalt and 90-degree turns and fire hydrants and crowds of people, and we need quite a few people around the animals to make sure they do what they're supposed to do when we're going around the turns and that sort of stuff.
It's a lot of work, but also a labor of love.
Fun to participate in this.
It is. Yeah, it's a good time. It's a neat experience. Good people.
It's clear that all the effort is much appreciated by those who get to watch this living history roll by in person, and an even bigger thrill for those fortunate enough to ride in the wagon.
You guys having fun up there?
Yeah!
As an engineer myself, I can appreciate all the work that they've done to this.
All very satisfying to the co-founder of the foundation that made it all happen.
Authentic wagons, authentic string of mules, authentically driven. I think it's pretty cool.
The 20 mule team was the star attraction as it made a rare appearance in November's annual 49er parade in Furnace Creek. But right behind was another horse-drawn celebration of the Old West, the Corral 14 Death Valley Wagon Train. Their story up next.
We'll see you guys at the shop.
Okay.
It's the end of a 10-day, 100-mile trek across the Mojave Desert. Corral 14 Wagon Train. Lots of cameras were out along the roadside as 11 wagons and horseback outriders trotted into Furnace Creek. The parade marks the end of this annual adventure that's been taking place every November since 1967, recalling the first wagon train that came through Death Valley during the 1849 gold rush. Just imagine coming through here in 1849 with a wagon train. Women and children, maybe a few people aren't feeling very well, not a blade of grass on the ground for your horses to eat. It's no wonder they called it Death Valley. Lost as they searched for a winter route around the southern end of the Sierra, the pioneers found themselves trapped in Death Valley for months. 2 men went for help, walking hundreds of miles to Los Angeles. And when the wagon train finally did escape, a woman looked back and said, "Goodbye, Valley of Death," and the name stuck, despite the objections of the indigenous Shoshone Indians.
The Timisha Shoshone have always lived here, and they do not call this place Death Valley. To them, that's sacrilegious. This is a place of life, a very spiritual place for them, and they still live here.
But no matter what tribe you're from, experiencing the rugged life of the wagon train does make you appreciate your hardy ancestors.
We're doing this with support trucks and everything. The pioneers did this with wagons, like 2 or 3 of them at a time, or the Mormons did it in hand carts. It just blows me away. You don't realize until you get out here and start doing it how much work it is.
On the last night in camp, after 10 days on the trail, this is a band of weary travelers, but ones who have clearly enjoyed the journey.
We're all sad to see it end.
Yes, yeah.
Yep. It kind of goes by too quick.
It's a beautiful scene that last night in camp. If you can edit out those modern-day support vehicles, the circle of wagons in pristine Death Valley looks like a scene out of the 1800s. Chores are the same as they were back then. Horses and mules are fed and watered. A campfire goes up as the sun goes down, and cooks prepare the evening meal. Later, this tight-knit band will gather for music, conversation, and laughter around the fire, trading stories about the day's adventures of rolling through the West in a covered wagon.
What I enjoy the most is looking at the scenery at such a slow pace, being able to see the flowers and the rocks.
I heard it was wonderful, and I always wanted to do it for years. So I did it, and I love it. The people are wonderful. The trip is beautiful.
Well, like I always tell people, life looks a whole lot different at 4 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Next morning, camp is stirring as dawn is breaking. Time again to feed the horses, who are eagerly awaiting their breakfast.
There you go.
Which Wagon Master Sue Martzloff is happy to serve.
I love watching them eat.
Love is a word you hear often among this crowd.
I love being out here waking up with my horses. The other night I put my cot right in between the two and slept in between the two of them all night.
She likes having her ears scratched, huh?
That's her favorite thing.
These horses and mules are part of the family and treated with much affection.
That's a way to make friends with a mule.
Yeah, scratch their ears?
Yeah. They almost all like that.
It's a special breed that wants to wagon train across the desert, and while they savor the adventure, the horses, the scenery, and all the rest, it's clear they genuinely enjoy the people they share it with.
This is a great bunch of people. They're helpful, they're friendly, and very humorous. We have a lot of fun.
The wagon train is put on with the cooperation and permission of the National Park Service, and one of the big rules is leave no trace. Take only photographs, leave only footprints. Every bit of horse poop and other debris is raked up and disposed of. It's a lot of work, on top of all the other work it takes to do this. But this group has an excellent track record with the Park Service and plans to keep it that way.
We want to leave our camp so that it looks like we were never here.
On this last day of the trip, everyone gets out their pioneer outfits for the parade into Furnace Creek.
1, 2, 3, smile.
There's time for a quick cast photo of the hardy band who made the journey, and then it's time to finish hitching up the teams. Alongside the wagons ride a handful of horseback outriders, ready to carry a message, head off traffic, or just lend a helping hand.
I love it. It's just so nice to come out of here with the horses and the camping and the camaraderie with everybody, and it makes you feel like you're back in the 1800s.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. I get to ride my horse, see beautiful country, meet very nice people, and get to sleep outside under the stars.
Everybody ready?
Finally, the wagons are ready to roll. And the wagon train is underway. The CORRAL 14 wagon train is a true living piece of American history.
It was a great adventure. It is a great adventure.
And this group is already looking forward to reliving the Old West once again next year.
It'll be good to have a shower in my own house, but I can hardly wait to do it again next year.
The wagon train only comes through Death Valley once a year, but the park is a fascinating place to visit anytime. It's desolate, beautiful, historic, and a great place to take a horseback ride.
Heading out on the sunset ride.
It's sunset at Furnace Creek Stables, where anyone can experience Death Valley from the back of a horse.
It's really pretty out here right now.
Here on the desert floor during the winter months, the sun disappears early.
Some of these mountains are over 11,000 feet, and we're down here 190 feet below sea level.
And it's not long before we're in the shade of the towering Panamint Mountains. But any time of day, sitting in the saddle is a very cool way to see the park.
It's a way just to, you know, maybe not have to look down at your feet while you're hiking around and look up and see what the park has to offer.
Furnace Creek Stables offers a variety of riding opportunities for any ability level.
It's really good for first-time riders, anybody looking for a pretty relaxing experience.
Including private rides and the Moonlight Ride.
You can see your moon shadow, the horse's shadow, and you going along the side of the trail, and that's pretty cool to experience. So,
it's beautiful, peaceful, magical, even historical. After all, horses were once state-of-the-art transportation.
Now we think it's kind of a slow pace, but they were sure glad to have these animals to pack their gear or pack themselves. It's sure a luxury.
That's quite a sky.
Yes.
You can get a closer look at Death Valley's pioneer past at the ruins of the Harmony Borax Works, where Chinese immigrants once raked what was called white gold off the desert floor by hand. The 20 mule team era only lasted about 5 years. Trains replaced mules, and richer deposits of borax were found elsewhere. However, the Pacific Coast Borax Company realized its Death Valley holdings offered other riches, and they built a magnificent hotel to begin mining tourism.
4 different mountain ranges that are visible just from this deck.
Built in 1927, the Furnace Creek Inn is now known as the Inn at Death Valley. The property has recently undergone a multi-million-dollar renovation. It's a magnificent historic hotel in a setting like no other.
Just to be able to come out into the middle of the desert, so far away from comfort and luxury, and still have it right next to you, it's just the best of both worlds.
The inn lies in a natural oasis with an abundant water supply from 2 springs.
So this was previously called the Marquez Room.
It's fun to take the tour, and there are beautiful vistas of Death Valley in virtually every direction.
And the ones in the front face right out onto the Panamint deck, which is a great view west. It's charming. So it's because it's a historic hotel and it was built the way it was, a lot of the different room types, even though they're considered the same, they still have something unique and individual that guests like.
Upstairs, the lobby and the adjacent cocktail bar have been completely renovated. And dining on the marvelous cuisine served at the hotel restaurant is an experience you won't soon forget.
I feel happy to work here. I mean, every day I come outside and I see a beautiful view.
You might be tempted to just hang out and enjoy the beautiful hotel, but then you'd miss all there is to see in America's biggest national park outside Alaska. Many of the highlights are a short drive from the inn and its nearby sister property, the ranch at Death Valley, which hosts more affordable accommodations and is home to the world's lowest golf course, 190 feet below sea level, just a chip shot away from the riding stables.
And then about a half-hour drive south of here is the really dramatic site, Badwater, the lowest place in the United States, where there's white salt that has fractured into polygons that are really bizarre looking. You can go down and see that. And then up in the mountains above that is a high point you can drive to, Dante's View. It's about 5,000 feet in elevation. And that gives you the great overview of Death Valley. You can see the dramatic landscape that is here.
The view includes snow-capped Telescope Peak, with an elevation topping 11,000 feet. The driest and lowest place in North America, Death Valley is also the hottest place on Earth, with a record-high temperature of 134 degrees set in 1913. And summer temperatures can often top 120 degrees.
But what's actually harder on the plants and animals here, and also on the people, is that overnight lows on the hottest days might be over 100. I remember one night we had an overnight low of 107.
But despite the heat, summer can be one of the park's busiest seasons.
Part of it is that Death Valley is the most extreme part of the American West. And if you're coming from another country to experience America and to experience the West, something different from Holland or Denmark or wherever you're from, what better time and what better place to go than Death Valley in the summer?
The cooler temperatures of fall and winter are certainly better for hiking, and there's an endless variety of places to explore. Zabriskie Point is perhaps the most accessible, right off the highway. Overlook area is a short walk from the parking lot, and the view speaks for itself. For the adventurous, hiking trails give you a closer look at the fascinating landscape. Another popular and relatively easy hike is the Natural Bridge Canyon Trail, about a 2-mile round trip.
It's absolutely beautiful. It's almost just surreal. It doesn't feel like it's a real place. I read somewhere that parts of Star Wars were filmed here in the park, and I didn't believe that there was a part of the world that was so different than everything else that could pass from another planet until we got here. And I could totally see that.
And you can hike just about anywhere here. People sometimes think that they're limited to just the few trails that they see on the map. Those are a good place to get started because they'll show you the easiest places to get to see something spectacular. But once you've seen Salt Creek and Harmony Borax Works and Golden Canyon, Natural Bridge, once you've seen those main front country areas, there's an entire park out there. That's what's kept me here for 14 years, is the exploration. Yeah, looking at any mountain going, I wonder what's up there.
It's the same spirit of adventure that brought the wagon trains, the prospectors, and the 20 mule teams to Death Valley, now preserved forever as a national park, and just waiting for you to come discover and enjoy.
One of the things I just love about the American West is Western art. But just what is Western art? Well, there may be no better place to find out than here at the Masters of the American West exhibition and sale at the Autry Museum of the American West here in Los Angeles.
Cowboys, Indians, wildlife, still life, realistic or not, oil, bronze, and other mediums.
I think the best way to describe my art is it's a reflection of who I am and what I do, what I love.
It's all Western art, displayed at one of the most prestigious Western art shows in the country, the Masters of the American West.
This is an amazing show. It is such an honor to be in it.
The nation's finest Western artists are invited to exhibit their works at the show, and no matter how successful they may be, it's a great honor to be invited.
It's such a prestigious show to be in, and it's very humbling too.
Some of the greatest living artists are here, and what's nice about it is that not only do you get to be up close and see the paintings, but you can be up close and see the painters as well and talk to them about their techniques.
There's a fascinating personal story behind every painting, like the Native American works of longtime Masters artist Z.S. Liang.
I try to make it as real as possible.
Growing up in poverty in the communist China of Chairman Mao, Liang's talent was evident even as a young boy, when he won a drawing contest at the age of 6. He came to America in the 1980s to earn a master's degree in Boston, where he discovered the Living History Museum of Pilgrim Plantation, which included the realistic depiction of the life of American Indians. But it was the Plains tribes, like the Sioux and Cheyenne, that really captured Liang's imagination, and he's been bringing their bygone way of life back to life ever since.
From 1803 to 1880s, and the most exciting.
It just interests me. It's something that I enjoy doing.
The West of today is also on display at the Masters. Award-winning artist Bill Anton's specialty is the cowboy, who remains alive and well in the American West.
They're still around, so you can get out and ride with them. It isn't a thing where it's historical.
A gifted painter, Anton has been showing at the Masters for years, but he's always grateful for the opportunity.
Well, what's great about this is the company that you're showing. You're showing with the best in the country in this genre. It's a real honor.
So I'm predominantly a landscape painter.
And the land of the West is as much a part of the art of the West as anything else.
It's kind of my brand. Oftentimes it takes a lot of work to get there, whether you're hiking or riding. And so this is something that I enjoy doing. Exploration and discovery are for me big parts of what I enjoy the most out of the profession.
I like to do what I call the softer side of the West.
Sonia Turpening is among the women of Western art.
You won't see a lot of Indian clashes or cowboys branding too much. You'll see more of the quieter side.
The peaceful home on the range, a scene from an Indian village, or an old-time locomotive chugging up the mountain.
It feels alive. It's spewing and steaming and rumbling.
I grew up with my grandfather reading Zane Grey novels, so I always had those covers and that imagery there.
Christy Milani uses her portrait skills to tell her stories of the West.
I really want people just to enjoy it, and I've been finding that at this show, that people are coming here and looking at this painting in particular, and they're just smiling and relating to the people, and just, you know, it's that interaction, that personal connection to a painting that's really important to me.
I did. I grew up first on his canvas.
And Brittany Whistling is perhaps the youngest Masters artist. She literally grew up at this show, modeling for the paintings of her acclaimed father, Morgan.
And now I'm making my own paintings, so it's quite a journey.
Like her grandma's recipe for apple pie.
And so it's a piece of my ancestry.
It's all part of the story of this amazing place, the American West, where the simple image of a man on horseback makes for beautiful art.
It's a big story, people with dreams leaving behind what they know to try something new, and, you know, going out into this fantastic landscape, its history, its colourful characters like this. It's just that whole human story that I love to paint.
One of the great things about the Masters is that after opening weekend, the show stays up for another 6 weeks, giving those of us who love Western art, or those discovering it for the very first time, the chance to savor this wonderful show. That's it for now. We're back next time with more cool stuff from today's Wild West. I'm Mark BEDOR. We'll see you down the trail. For more information on the people and places featured in today's Wild West, or to order show DVDs and books, visit todayswildwest.com. Funding for Today's Wild West provided by the Leggett Foundation and the Chuck Wagon Trail Riders Foundation.